President Trump pulls Space Command out of Colorado, coming right out and saying his military decision is motivated by politics.
The problem I have with Colorado, one of the big problems, they do mail-in voting.
I'll have a word about how President Trump is using the military against his domestic political opponents and what that's called. Denver is falling behind on its goal of moving people from homelessness to housing. Immigrants accustomed to checking in with ICE so they can stay here say people are being detained in those regular meetings. And it's art in unexpected places.
It's just basically a treasure hunt.
Tonight on Next. President Trump is moving Space Command out of Colorado Springs, saying that it is punishment for Colorado using mail-in ballots, linking a strategic military decision to his false claims that the 2020 election was rigged against him. Trump tying mail-in ballots to the Space Command decision is new. The battle over whether to keep it in the Springs or move it to Huntsville, Alabama is not new. 4 years this has gone on. Temporary headquarters were already in Colorado when the Air Force picked Alabama as the location during Trump's first term. President Biden then declared Colorado to be the permanent home, said that it would take too long to uproot and relocate staff and they could harm national defense. Now Trump says Space Command is moving to Alabama permanently. There has been serious debate in national security circles about which of the two cities, both heavy on military and defense contractors, would be the best location. But then President Trump made clear today that politics played, in his own words, a big factor.
Thank Colorado. The problem I have with Colorado, one of the big problems, they do mail-in voting. They went to all mail-in voting. So they have automatically crooked elections. And we can't have that. When a state is for mail-in voting, that means they want dishonest elections because that's what that means. So that played a big factor also.
Colorado's whole congressional delegation, D's and R's, want Space Command to stay here. In a rare joint statement, they wrote, quote, "We are united in fighting to reverse this decision. Bottom line, moving Space Command headquarters weakens our national security at the worst possible time." It's not clear if they can do squat about it. Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser also says he plans to challenge this decision in court. Similarly, it's not clear on what grounds. A constant voice on this issue for years has been John Suthers, the Republican who served as Colorado AG and mayor of the Springs. He met with both Biden and Trump trying to convince the presidents to keep Space Command in Colorado. Suthers told us today that Trump actually made it clear to him years ago that he saw Space Command as a reward for his supporters in Alabama, rather than for people in a blue state like Colorado.
When I talked to him about it in January of this would be 2020, so a year before he left office, he said to me, "Are you a Republican mayor?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "What are the prospects for me in Colorado?" Well, not being stupid, I didn't say you don't have any chance at all. I said uncertain. He seemed annoyed by that and said, "Well, I think I'm going to wait until after the election to make the decision about Space Command." And I knew at that point in time that that was going to be problematic.
Colorado Springs is set to lose about 1,500 jobs directly tied to Space Command. Former Mayor Suthers says that will then ripple into the civilian workforce with more job losses as defense contractors follow active duty service members out of state. President Trump's decision to move Space Command headquarters out of Colorado is the latest example of the president's willingness to use the military for domestic political advantage. Here and across America, it's time that we are clear about what's happening. President Trump was clear. He's stripping Colorado of a military installation because Coloradans didn't vote for him, putting it in Alabama where people did vote for him. But today, Trump took it to another level. He's now linking military decision-making to his false claim that the 2020 election was rigged against him. That's a dangerous escalation. Trump says that Colorado, where he lost badly, has automatically crooked elections, echoing something that he says Russian President Vladimir Putin recently told him. But Trump isn't threatening retribution against the states with extensive mail-in voting where he won. U.S. Election Assistance Commission found that Trump won half of the states where at least 30% of the ballots were returned by mail. No retaliation for that mail-in voting. It's similar to how the president is deploying troops into blue state cities, saying he's fighting crime, while ignoring similar or higher crime rates in cities in red states. Today, just hours after a federal judge ruled that the Trump administration willfully broke the law by sending troops into Los Angeles, Trump warned Chicago, quote, "We're going in." Now, there's an argument that cities do need federal help to reduce violent crime. There's an argument the Space Command truly belongs in Alabama. But President Trump makes clear, in word and in deed, what this is really about for him. It's about using the military for his personal advantage in domestic politics. Trump has also made clear how to avoid that retaliation. Just vote for him. Vote for him, and your state's cities won't be targeted with troop deployments. Vote for him and keep your military installations. If all of this was happening in another nation, we would not hesitate to describe it clearly. If it was Kazakhstan instead of Colorado, Caracas instead of Chicago, we would call it by name. It's authoritarianism. The City of Denver says it is likely going to miss its goal on one of the mayor's top priorities, moving people from homelessness into permanent housing. Our Mark Salinger takes a closer look.
Denver's fight to solve homelessness is facing a new hurdle.
So it really clogs the whole system, which is why it's so problematic.
Mayor Mike Johnston says the city is beginning to lose state and federal housing vouchers that help people transition from shelters to permanent housing.
So we do need federal help. We do need state help. When those go away, it just puts more pressure on the city to step up.
The Denver Housing Authority lost 100 housing vouchers last quarter after federal funds were pulled back. The state cut another 80 vouchers as Colorado faced a $1 billion budget shortfall. The result is more people staying in city-run shelters for longer periods of time. That costs Denver taxpayers more money.
If those vouchers go away, now the exits for people to leave our shelters and go into permanent housing are blocked. That means those folks get stuck in those transitional shelters for longer and longer. That means people that are on the streets trying to get into those transitional housing sites don't have spots come open.
The changes have led to a slowdown in people moving out of shelters and into housing. So much so that the city says it likely won't hit its goal of moving 2,000 people off the streets and into permanent housing this year.
So what it means is literally the very most vulnerable part of the population that can't get a job and pay their own rent are the ones who are most affected by losing these vouchers.
The city of Denver has spent at least $200 million enacting Johnston's top priority as mayor. But the mayor's push to solve homelessness is only as strong as the resources and money that are available.
So I don't think we can rely anymore on the belief that the federal government will be there for support.
Exits to permanent and stable housing continue to outpace exits from shelters back to the streets. That gives the mayor hope that this strategy is working. But if more funding is pulled or more housing resources are lost, the sustainability of keeping people in hotel shelters for even longer periods of time becomes harder to keep up. The city says they could pivot in theory toward trying to train more people to get back to work into the workforce. But of course, Kyle, that's challenging.
Yeah, certainly different resources, right, Mark, might prompt people to make different decisions, right? That here's what they think they can do with relatively unlimited funds, but in a constrained budget, this is the best that they can do.
Yeah, and if you look at how much it costs to keep somebody in a mile-high shelter for a year, for example, the mayor says it's about $40,000. But if you can rotate, let's say, 4 people throughout the year, then all of a sudden you used $40,000 to get 4 people into permanent housing. You can see how that adds up quickly if you just leave one person in the hotel all year.
Mark, I appreciate it. I've called you Marshall a dozen times. Why I called you Mike, I've got no idea.
It's a lot of M's.
It's a lot of M's. I appreciate it. Thank you. Gun rights advocates are going to court over a new state law requiring people to go through gun safety courses before they buy most semi-autos. In a lawsuit filed today, the Colorado chapter of the National Rifle Association argues that those regulations place an unlawful burden on gun owners. Unlawful as in unconstitutional. A law set to go into effect next August. It requires in-person safety training and a sheriff-issued eligibility card to buy most semi-automatic guns with detachable magazines. The Colorado State Shooting Association says that's a Second Amendment violation and the process is too lengthy and expensive. Democratic Governor Jared Polis actually agrees with them on the cost aspect. He suggested a voucher program for low-income Coloradans who can't afford the safety trainings. Republicans in the state House have asked the Trump administration to intervene and investigate whether the law is constitutional. The Democrats who push this through say they hope it'll prevent mass shootings, and they say the new requirements reinforce existing restrictions that already are in place for high-capacity magazines. Angeline McCall, who leads our immigration coverage, heard from folks about surprise ICE check-ins over the weekend. People given short notice to appear before immigration agents. Standard for a lot of people to check in there once or twice a year, but this time, advocates told Angeline it felt different.
When letters were sent out, advocates decided to be there too. Over the weekend at the ICE field office in Centennial, volunteers protested, then waited for people who received a letter that looked like this, being summoned to show up for an ICE check-in.
It was a lot of people who were pretty scared, I would say. I think the feeling in the community right now is pretty heightened and a little bit apprehensive.
Jordan Garcia with the American Friends Service Committee said they learned dozens of people received the letter. The concern? The fact that it was short notice and a different name some people didn't recognize as their own deportation officer.
I think because it was unusual, it definitely made all of my spidey senses kind of emerge. So there were other people too that were like, we haven't seen anything like this, and so it's concerning.
While ICE check-ins are often standard, this, Garcia said, felt different.
So I think what we're seeing is that anything that feels really different from kind of what's been expected in the past feels more scary.
They know of at least 4 people who were detained at their appointment. The group on Saturday tried to share Know Your Rights information and support people told to show up for their appointment.
Part of what we wanted to do was get information, and so just really find out what people were experiencing once they went inside, if they chose to go inside.
After sharing Know Your Rights information, some people made the decision to reschedule their appointment and see if they could make that for a time and day when they knew their lawyer could be present with them.
What do we know about what happened to the people detained?
We know that one man was an elderly gentleman. The others that we don't know much about them. They're working to find out, for instance, are they still in custody? Did they get released? Are they unreleased on some kind of program like ankle monitoring or GPS monitoring? So hopefully we'll have those answers in the upcoming days or weeks.
As your reporting has shown us, it's so different than the criminal justice system where it's very easy for us to track people through the process. Sometimes people go into the immigration process and they kind of disappear from view. Angeline, thank you. Denver Public Schools is not ready to announce if it's going to comply with the Trump administration's latest order or risk punishment. I would not normally encourage you to just pick up strange stuff you see on the street, but today is special.
It's just fun to get out and see your community and get out and share your art with people.
In nooks and crannies around the city, art is waiting to be discovered. That's next. The clock is ticking for Denver Public Schools to decide whether to defy the Trump administration's order to get rid of 2 gender-neutral bathrooms at East High. District hasn't announced a decision, but they're questioning how this civil rights investigation by the feds really worked. Last Thursday, the U.S. Department of Education ruled that the district violated Title IX gender discrimination laws when it converted a girls' bathroom at East into a multi-stall gender-neutral bathroom. They ordered DPS to reinstate the girls-only bathroom and to do away with district policies that allow students to use facilities that align with their gender expression. District leaders say they're still deciding what to do next. In a statement today, the school board argued that this federal investigation was basically a sham. They say that students had requested a gender-neutral bathroom option and that investigators never even came to the school or talked to students about it. DPS has 10 days to comply with the order, so we expect a decision early next week. If the district does not comply, the feds say that they will take, quote, imminent enforcement action. Meteorologist Chris Bianchi's forecast is imminent, but first, snow in September. I feel like it's not even something that's on our radar this year or in recent years, but it's been a thing in Colorado.
Exactly. It used to snow regularly, Kyle, in Colorado, and specifically here in the Denver area. But in the last 25 years in Denver, we've had exactly one measurable snow event for us here in Denver. But as recently as 1971, we had about 1.5 feet of snow in the month of September. Again, we've had measurable snow once in the past 25 years. That was back in 2020. Meantime, temperatures have warmed up about 2 degrees. This is the month of the year here in Colorado where we feel the impact of a warming climate the most out of any time of the year. We've warmed up 2 degrees, and that's taken a lot of borderline snow events and turned them into rain. Temperatures today nowhere close to snow with an 84-degree high temperature in Denver, 90 in Fort Collins, 69 up in Leadville. Still seeing a few gusty showers for us rest of the foothills, but overall, we're drying things out. And tomorrow on the dry side and warm side as well. 88 degrees for us in Denver, so a breezy and warmer day. And that 7-day forecast, it's a little cooler for us on Friday with a bit of a nip of fall for us, but then back into the low 80s for us on Saturday, mid 80s for us for the early part of next week. Storm odds highs for us on Sunday, and keeping an eye on perhaps some disruptions to that Broncos game on Sunday afternoon. We'll get you more details on that as it gets a bit closer.
Art is all around, if you know where to look. An annual treasure hunt returns to Denver. Next. Artists have scattered free pieces of their work all around the Denver metro area as part of what's called Art Drop Day. You just have to find it. So we went on the hunt.
So Art Drop Day is a worldwide event that was started by artist Jake Parker.
Well, it's fun. It's once a year, and it's basically people just take their art and just hide it in various parts of their city.
Most of my art is kind of mushroom related. So I'll do things like disco snails, which is this little guy.
I did all these different dog illustrations, and then I organized them like the periodic table of elements.
We're on our little blocky run today, just dropping all over at our favorite small businesses and parks and all the places we like to spend time in Denver. And they do it specifically for this day. They've been asked to make a website or ship them, but they won't do it.
Today I got an email from a guy he wasn't part of the group. He just found it at the rec center and then emailed me saying he found it. Just ran across it without even knowing it was an actual day.
And also how it just sort of inserts magic and whimsy into otherwise kind of an ordinary day.
I'd rather share it with the community and be part of this event and have someone enjoy them.
Our house is littered with them. People are always coming and are like, what's with all the cubes with the eyes? And we're like, you know.
Thank you. Anyone can create things and participate in an event like this. And I think that's what makes it so fun.
I feel like our nation is super divided. And so having things like this that are just about joy and love and community and art is really, really important.
There's so much art and creativity in Denver, and the fact that people are willing to share their art with their community in this really free way is a very cool thing.
Go find them.
People find these pieces fast. Most of the artists we spoke with said those drops were found within a couple of hours. Denver Arts and Venues also hid tickets to concerts and events. So happy hunting. Marilyn's here with feedback. What do the people want to talk about tonight?
They're pretty quiet.
They're pretty quiet, are they?
No, just kidding.
You want to talk about the commentary? About authoritarianism? Oh my goodness. All right, we will talk about that next. Stack of feedback tonight about the commentary on authoritarianism with the way that President Trump is currently using the military against domestic political opponents. John in Littleton writes in to say President Trump is not unique in using the military for political purposes. He is simply transparent about it, which some of us find refreshing. A text says, thank you for continuing to present the truth. I am sure that there is significant pressure to do otherwise. Bart in Denver writes in with a note that echoes a lot of the comments that we heard tonight. He says, the growth and acceptance of authoritarianism is the greatest threat to our country we have seen this century. Bart says, this is not a partisan issue. And Mark with this, dude, way to throw down the gauntlet with respect to authoritarianism. Mark continues, are we going to have to run a word of thanks fundraiser to bail your tush out of jail? I certainly hope not, Mark. There's worse things in the world than getting in trouble for speaking the truth. We'll see you next time.